was the United States F-15 to turn a secret jungle drug lab into ashes. Hidden deep in the Mexican jungle, the billion-dollar Cartel lab was protected by thick trees and armed guards. Daily, they made millions from drugs that were sending Americans to their early graves. The Cartel thought it was untouchable until the sky lit up. Now Mexico is furious. How did the United States find it? And could this strike spark a dangerous international showdown? Join us as we find out how the United States completely wiped off a drug cartel lab. The Pentagon war room buzzed with tension as military planners faced their biggest decision. Two aircraft sat on the digital display screen. The F-22 Raptor, America's invisible ghost that could slip past any radar. The F-15, a flying arsenal that carried enough firepower to level a city block. The target was a heavily defended cartel lab deep in the Mexican jungle. Only one plane would get the mission. The choice seemed obvious. Send the stealth fighter, let it sneak through enemy airspace undetected, and strike without warning. But the Pentagon's top minds saw a different picture. This mission needed more than invisibility. It needed an overwhelming force. The F-15 carries 15 air-to-air missiles compared to the F-22's 8 internal weapons. More importantly, it can load massive bombs that stealth fighters cannot carry. The Cartel lab was built like a fortress, thick concrete walls, underground bunkers. Multiple buildings are spread across acres of jungle. Destroying this target required serious firepower, not surgical precision. Stealth fighters hide their weapons inside internal bays to stay invisible to radar. This design limits what they can carry. The biggest bombs simply will not fit. The F-15 mounts its weapons on external racks. It can carry the heaviest penetrating bombs in America's arsenal. Weapons designed to punch through reinforced concrete and collapse underground facilities. The Eagle II brings another crucial advantage. Its advanced electronic warfare systems create what military experts call virtual stealth. Instead of hiding from enemy radar, it blinds and confuses those same systems. Powerful jammers disrupt communications. Decoy signals make the aircraft appear in multiple locations at once. Defensive systems automatically detect and counter incoming missiles. This electronic shield proves more valuable than traditional stealth in certain missions. Stealth fighters become visible once they open their weapon bays to attack. The F-15 never tries to hide. It overwhelms enemy defenses with electronic warfare while delivering devastating firepower. The aircraft's twin engines generate 58,000 pounds of thrust. This massive power lets it carry maximum weapons loads while maintaining high speed and maneuverability. A fully loaded F-15 can still outrun most enemy fighters. The F-22, while faster when empty, loses performance when carrying heavy weapons internally. Range played the final deciding factor. The jungle lab sat hundreds of miles from the nearest American airbase. The mission required flying deep into hostile territory, striking multiple targets, and returning safely. The F-15's large fuel capacity and efficient engines provided the endurance needed for extended combat operations. Pentagon planners also considered the psychological impact. The cartel needed to see overwhelming American firepower. A stealth attack might go unnoticed until too late. The F-15's massive weapons load would leave no doubt about America's military superiority. The smoking crater would send a clear message to every cartel leader watching. The decision was final. Raw firepower, electronic warfare capability, and extended range made the F-15 the perfect weapon for this mission. Sometimes winning requires being seen, not staying hidden. The Eagle II would deliver America's message with devastating clarity. But choosing the perfect weapon meant nothing without finding the target first. How do you hunt ghosts hiding in Mexico's vast jungle? The U-2 Dragon Lady lifted off from Beale Air Force Base at 4 in the morning. Its single engine whispered through the darkness as the spy plane climbed towards 70,000 feet. Below, most of America still slept. Above, the pilot began the most important reconnaissance mission in the drug war's history. This aircraft was built to photograph Soviet nuclear missiles during the Cold War. Now it hunted a different kind of weapon. Somewhere in the mountains of Sinaloa, a cartel lab was cooking enough fentanyl to kill 10 million Americans. The facility had operated for 3 years without detection. Traditional law enforcement had failed to find it. The military needed eyes that could see through lies. The U-2 never crossed into Mexican airspace. International law prevented that. But from 13 miles high, its cameras could read license plates on trucks moving through cartel territory. Advanced sensors captured every radio signal, every cell phone call, every electronic whisper from the criminal empire below. The spy plane collected data that would have taken ground agents years to gather. Satellites joined the hunt from even higher altitudes. Military reconnaissance birds repositioned over central Mexico, their orbits carefully planned to avoid detection. These electronic guardians watched the same patches of jungle every few hours. Computer programs analyzed thousands of images, looking for changes that human eyes might miss. The breakthrough came from heat signatures. Deep in the forest canopy, something was generating massive amounts of thermal energy. Infrared sensors detected the glow of industrial equipment hidden beneath trees. Chemical processing requires high temperatures. The lab's cooking operations created a heat footprint visible from space. Ground surveillance teams confirmed what satellites suspected. Special operations soldiers, disguised as hikers and researchers, approached the target area from multiple directions. They planted tiny sensors that detected chemical odors carried by the wind. Electronic listening devices picked up the hum of generators and ventilation systems. The cartel had chosen its location carefully. No roads led directly to the facility. Supply trucks stopped miles away, transferring cargo to pack animals for the final journey. Armed guards patrolled a wide perimeter. Motion sensors and cameras protected every approach route. The criminals believed their jungle fortress was invisible. They were wrong. American intelligence agencies had spent 6 months mapping every detail of the operation. Analysts knew the work schedules of lab technicians. They tracked supply deliveries down to individual chemical shipments. Surveillance teams counted security guards and documented their patrol patterns. The final piece came from intercepted communications. Cartel leaders, believing their encrypted phones were secure, discussed production schedules and shipping plans. National Security Agency computers cracked their codes within hours. Every conversation provided more intelligence about the target's exact location and defensive measures. By October, military planners possessed complete blueprints of the hidden facility. They knew which buildings housed the actual cooking equipment. They identified the main chemical storage areas. Most importantly, they had precise GPS coordinates for every structure that needed to be destroyed. The hunt was over. America's invisible eyes had found their target. Now came the hard part, turning intelligence into action. Intelligence had found the target, but destroying it required something no spy plane could provide: presidential permission for war. The Oval Office meeting lasted 3 hours. President Trump sat behind the resolute desk, surrounded by his national security team. Satellite photos of the cartel lab covered the conference table. The defense secretary briefed him on strike options. The CIA director explained the intelligence breakthrough. The attorney general outlined the legal framework needed for military action. The decision was historic. With a single signature, Trump redesignated Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. The Sinaloa Cartel and Jalisco New Generation Cartel suddenly faced the same legal status as ISIS and Al-Qaeda. This was not paperwork. This was a declaration that would unlock America's full military power against criminal networks operating across the southern border. The terrorist designation created terrifying new realities. Anyone providing material support to these organizations now faces 20 years in federal prison. The definition of support stretched far beyond drug trafficking. Paying protection money, transporting goods through cartel territory, or even family members sending money home could trigger terrorism charges. But Trump needed more than legal authority. He needed Mexico's cooperation. The cartel lab sat on Mexican soil. Any military strike would violate international law without permission from Mexico City. Traditional diplomacy would take months. The fentanyl crisis was killing Americans every day. Trump chose economic warfare instead. The ultimatum arrived on a cold January morning through diplomatic channels. Mexico had until February to crush the cartels or face crushing 25% tariffs on all imports. $400 billion in annual trade hung in the balance. For President Claudia Sheinbaum, the message was crystal clear: deliver results or watch Mexico's economy collapse. Sheinbaum faced an impossible choice in her emergency cabinet meeting. The foreign minister spread satellite images across the conference table, showing American military assets massing along the border. Predator drones had relocated to forward bases in Texas and Arizona. The threat was not just economic, it was existential. Her public response came swiftly and defiantly. Standing at her presidential podium, Sheinbaum rejected any American military intervention on Mexican soil. Her words invoked memories of 1914, when United States naval forces occupied Veracruz for 7 months. Mexican officials privately compared the crisis to that dark chapter when foreign forces violated their sovereignty. But behind closed doors, a different game unfolded. While Sheinbaum publicly denounced American threats, her intelligence chief quietly authorized expanded cooperation with CIA surveillance operations. The contradiction was stark and deliberate. Mexican officials hoped this delicate balance would prevent unilateral strikes while preserving national dignity. Then came the unprecedented gambit. In a single pre-dawn operation that stunned the world, Mexico rounded up 29 imprisoned drug lords from facilities across the country. They loaded them onto planes bound for 8 different American cities. Rafael Caro Quintero, whose 1985 murder of DEA agent Enrique Camarena poisoned relations for decades, finally faced American justice. The mass extradition was desperate diplomacy. Former DEA operations chief called it historic, a clear sign of Mexico's desperation to avoid economic punishment. Typically, Mexico extradited prisoners individually after lengthy legal processes. 29 at once was unprecedented. Trump announced a 30-day suspension of threatened tariffs. The reprieve came with conditions. Mexico agreed to deploy additional troops and intensify operations against fentanyl production. But the crisis had awakened something far more dangerous. Deep in the Mexican jungle, American eyes in the sky had already painted their target with invisible crosshairs. Diplomatic pressure had bought time, but the Cartel lab kept cooking death while Pentagon war planners faced their ultimate test. How? The Pentagon's third-floor conference room had no windows. Under harsh fluorescent lights, military planners spread classified photos across a mahogany table. The Cartel lab appeared as green blobs on thermal imaging. Concrete structures are hidden beneath the jungle canopy. Generator buildings, chemical storage tanks. Guard towers are positioned at strategic points around the perimeter. Air Force Colonel Martinez traced flight paths on the digital map with her finger. 12 F-15s would approach from the north, flying low through mountain valleys to avoid Mexican radar. The route required precise timing. Too early and dawn light would expose the aircraft. Too late, and morning cloud cover might obscure the target. Each pilot had studied the mission for 3 weeks. They memorized satellite images until they could identify every building from memory. Flight simulators recreated the exact terrain, weather conditions, and approach angles. Pilots practiced the attack run dozens of times until muscle memory took over. There would be no second chances once they crossed into Mexican airspace. Weapon selection proved critical. The Pentagon chose GBU-39 small-diameter bombs for their precision and reduced collateral damage. Each F-15 carried 2 bombs, totaling 24 weapons for the strike. These smart bombs used GPS guidance accurate to within 3 feet. Laser designators provided backup targeting if satellite signals failed. The legal team worked around the clock preparing justification documents. Military lawyers cited the same frameworks used against terrorist camps in Pakistan and Yemen. The cartel's terrorist designation provided legal authority. Mexico's failure to eliminate the threat, despite diplomatic agreements, created grounds for self-defense action. International law allowed cross-border strikes against imminent threats to national security. Pentagon planners faced impossible constraints. The strike had to destroy the lab completely while avoiding civilian casualties. Intelligence showed the facility operated with a skeleton crew during pre-dawn hours. Timing the attack for 4 in the morning would minimize loss of life while maximizing destruction of equipment and chemical stockpiles. Weather added another variable. The monsoon season brought heavy cloud cover that could hide the target from laser-guided weapons. Satellite forecasts showed a narrow window of clear skies lasting 2 hours. The strike had to happen within that time frame or wait another week for favorable conditions. Communications security required complete radio silence until weapons release. Pilots would navigate using GPS and pre-programmed waypoints. No voice contact with ground controllers, no data links that enemy signals intelligence could intercept. The strike force would operate as electronic ghosts until the moment bombs began falling. Mission commanders ran through failure scenarios. What if Mexican air defenses detected the formation? F-15 pilots carried air-to-air missiles for self-defense, but had strict orders to avoid engagement unless directly threatened. What if the weather obscured the target? Abort procedures required the formation to return home with weapons unexpended, rather than risk hitting the wrong target. The stakes could not be higher. Success would eliminate a major source of fentanyl killing Americans and demonstrate decisive action against cartel terrorism. Failure could trigger a diplomatic crisis with Mexico, potentially leading to economic retaliation or political upheaval. Civilian casualties would undermine American moral authority and strengthen anti-American sentiment across Latin America. Intelligence updates arrived hourly from surveillance assets monitoring the target. Satellite photos confirmed normal activity patterns. Heat signatures showed the lab operating at full capacity. Guard rotations followed predictable schedules. Everything indicated business as usual at the facility. The final mission briefing occurred at midnight. Pilots received updated weather reports, target coordinates, and rules of engagement. Each aviator signed documents acknowledging the classified nature of the operation. Base security locked down the facility, no phone calls, no internet access, no communication with the outside world until after mission completion. At 0200 hours, ground crews began final preparations. Weapons loaded and armed, fuel tanks topped off, aircraft systems checked and double-checked. The strike force was ready to launch. At 0400 hours, 12 F-15 lifted off into darkness, carrying America's deadliest message. Would the jungle hide their target? The formation climbed through Mexican airspace like silent predators. 12 F-15s maintained radio silence as they approached the Sinaloa Mountains. Their engines whispered death while radar screens across Mexico remained empty. Advanced stealth technology made the heavily armed fighters invisible to ground-based detection systems. Below in the jungle clearing, cartel workers moved between concrete buildings in the pre-dawn darkness. Generator engines hummed steadily, powering the chemical equipment that cooked fentanyl around the clock. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, their night vision goggles scanning tree lines for ground threats. Nobody looked up. Nobody expected death from the sky. Flight lead checked his targeting display one final time. GPS coordinates matched intelligence reports perfectly. Thermal imaging confirmed heat signatures from active laboratory equipment. The facility glowed like a beacon on infrared sensors. 24 smart bombs hung beneath the strike formation, each weapon programmed with precise impact points. At 30,000 feet above the target, the pilot's voice cut through cockpit silence. Execute, execute, execute. 24 bombs dropped simultaneously from external pylons. No smoke trails marked their descent. No warning sirens announced incoming destruction. The weapons simply vanished into jungle darkness, guided by satellite signals toward their program coordinates. The first explosion shattered the chemical storage building. Industrial tanks containing thousands of gallons of precursor chemicals erupted in orange flames that lit the forest canopy like daylight. Secondary blasts followed as stored materials ignited, sending toxic smoke billowing through the trees. The main laboratory building disintegrated under direct impact from 6 bombs. Concrete walls collapsed inward as cooking equipment, ventilation systems, and processing machinery were pulverized into twisted metal. Years of construction and millions of dollars in specialized equipment became rubble in seconds. Guard towers toppled as precision strikes eliminated defensive positions. The barracks housing security personnel took direct hits, ending any organized resistance before it could begin. Generator buildings exploded, cutting power to surveillance systems and communications equipment throughout the facility. The strikes lasted exactly 2 seconds. 24 weapons found their targets with surgical accuracy. When the explosions ended, nothing remained of the billion-dollar operation except smoking craters and scattered debris. The jungle fell silent except for crackling flames consuming what little survived the bombing. Cartel radio networks erupted in panic. Encrypted communications revealed terror among surviving commanders who witnessed the destruction from distant observation posts. "They know where we are," became the whispered message spreading through criminal networks across multiple states. Laboratory workers abandoned their posts at other facilities. Supply convoys scattered into mountain hideouts. Mexican radar operators detected the strike formation only after bombs began exploding. Air defense systems were activated too late to intercept aircraft already climbing toward American airspace. Ground controllers tracked 12 fast-moving contacts departing Mexican territory, but could not identify the aircraft type or origin. President Sheinbaum received the emergency briefing at her residence 30 minutes after the attack. Intelligence officials confirmed American military aircraft had conducted unauthorized strikes on Mexican soil. The operation violated national sovereignty and international law. Mexico's foreign ministry immediately summoned the American ambassador for emergency consultations. The Pentagon released no official statement. A Defense Department spokesman refused to confirm or deny military operations. The White House press secretary declined to comment on classified national security matters. America's response was silence that spoke louder than any diplomatic protest. Within hours, the psychological impact spread through cartel organizations like wildfire. Leaders who had operated with impunity for decades suddenly faced an enemy that could eliminate targets from invisible aircraft. Safe houses were abandoned overnight. Production facilities shut down operations. The untouchable kings of Mexico's underworld discovered they were no longer untouchable. The strike represented a fundamental shift in America's approach to the drug war. Criminal organizations that built empires, believing geography provided protection, now faced military technology designed for eliminating terrorist networks. 2 seconds of American air power had permanently changed the rules of engagement between nations and cartels. Running a drug lab in the wrong place can bring swift punishment. Deep in the Guatemalan jungle, a cartel was mass-producing enough fentanyl to kill millions, believing it was safely hidden. But 2 U.S. stealth fighters struck in minutes, reducing it to ashes. How did the Air Force find it, and what firepower made it possible? Join us as we find out how the United States Air Force dropped the hammer on a cartel drug lab. At 14,000 feet above the Guatemalan jungle, a classified satellite operated by the National Security Agency is not just collecting imagery. This satellite is equipped with thermal sensors capable of detecting temperature changes as small as 2 degrees from orbit. At this moment, those sensors are detecting something unusual. The jungle is expected to be cool at night, but one area is glowing brightly on the thermal display. While the surrounding forest shows a typical temperature of about 68 degrees, this square mile is registering between 85 and 90 degrees. That kind of heat is not typical. It suggests industrial activity. The satellite systems flag the heat anomaly and send the data to the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Within minutes, analysts are reviewing thermal imagery that presents a clear situation. Under the tree canopy, someone is operating heavy machinery. This type of machinery requires constant power, generates large amounts of heat, and appears to be running around the clock. The pattern of heat signatures reveals 3 separate hot zones, arranged in a triangle and spaced approximately 200 meters apart. This is a common setup for drug production operations. 1 building for processing, 1 for storing materials, and 1 for packing. The criminal group likely believed the jungle would conceal their activities. That assumption was incorrect. However, the United States Air Force does not act solely on infrared data. Visual confirmation is required. That's when the MQ-9 Reaper drone is deployed. This remotely piloted aircraft, measuring about 27 feet in length, can stay airborne for up to 14 hours and operates quietly at 25,000 feet. It is unlikely the group below would be aware of its presence. The drone's high-resolution cameras focus on the heat sources. What they observe supports the thermal data. Clearings in the forest show newly constructed buildings, absent from past satellite records. Fresh vehicle tracks lead through the vegetation. Exhaust stacks from generators are visible through camouflage coverings. Additionally, the drone's signals intelligence equipment intercepts communications. The individuals on the ground are speaking openly, assuming they are isolated. They discuss schedules, supply deliveries, and output levels. These transmissions are all recorded. By morning, the full intelligence picture is in place. The heat patterns do not indicate just any facility. They point to a large-scale laboratory manufacturing synthetic drugs. The operation is producing a volume capable of causing widespread harm. The group behind it chose a remote location, but one that did not escape detection. The United States Air Force now has all the required information: exact locations, verified structures, legal authority. The next step is to take action and demonstrate that dense jungle terrain does not guarantee safety from detection or consequences. But spotting the heat was just step one. Now the Air Force needed eyes that never blinked. What comes next? Very early that morning, an MQ-9 Reaper drone lifted off from Creech Air Force Base in Nevada. Its destination is a patch of Guatemalan jungle, roughly 2,400 miles away. The pilots controlling this $17 million unmanned aircraft remain inside an air-conditioned trailer. This reflects how modern military operations can be conducted remotely. Operators can monitor and strike from halfway around the world. The Reaper ascends to an altitude of 25,000 feet and begins a holding pattern over the Cartel compound. From this height, it cannot be seen or heard by anyone on the ground. No engine sound, no visible trail, just a silent aircraft observing from above. Before any action is taken, the drone's mission is to monitor, record, and gather data. Its multispectral targeting system locks onto 3 buildings identified earlier through satellite thermal imagery. This advanced camera can detect small visual details from long distances, recognizing objects like license plates from 15 miles away. Identifying people from 5 miles up is well within its capabilities. For the next 72 hours, the drone maintains its position. It continuously records the activity below. It observes staff arriving early in the morning. It watches trucks delivering supplies late at night. It logs security guards walking patrol routes every 2 hours on a regular schedule. The individuals operating the compound take precautions. They post lookouts along forest paths. They use radios with coded language. They move materials only after dark. However, they never consider monitoring the skies above them. By Wednesday afternoon, analysts with the United States Air Force had completed a full layout of the facility. Building 1 contains the drug processing equipment used to manufacture synthetic opioids. Building 2 stores the finished product in packages weighing 50 kilograms each. Building 3 provides housing for approximately 15 individuals associated with the operation. The drone's electronic surveillance tools intercept radio transmissions. Analysts learn that the group is expecting a major delivery on Thursday night. 3 trucks are scheduled to arrive, carrying the chemical components needed to create 500 kilograms of fentanyl. The estimated value of that shipment on the street is approximately $50 million. That shipment will never arrive. On Thursday morning, additional intelligence is gathered. The drone's heat sensors detect increased thermal output from Building 1. All processing machinery appears to be operating at full capacity. This shift makes identification easier. The higher heat signatures cause equipment to stand out clearly on thermal images. The increased activity also reveals which machines are in use. At the same time, over 1,200 miles away at Eglin Air Force Base, crews prepare F-35 Lightning II stealth aircraft for a precision strike. Each plane carries 2 GBU-31 Joint Direct Attack munitions. Combined, each aircraft is equipped with 4,000 pounds of guided explosives designed for penetrating hardened targets. The operations plan is straightforward: 3 buildings, 6 bombs. By Thursday evening, the drone had sent more than 2,000 high-resolution images to intelligence teams. Every doorway has been noted. Every guard's routine has been tracked. Every piece of equipment has been marked for destruction. While the group on the ground spent months constructing a secure jungle facility, analysts spent 72 hours planning how to eliminate it. At 2100 hours, the Reaper receives updated commands. It transitions from surveillance to active target marking. Observation ends. The strike phase begins. On the ground, the individuals involved in the operation continue their routines, unaware that targeting data is already being programmed into the aircraft systems. They rely on the dense jungle for cover. That protection is no longer effective. After 3 days of watching, the Air Force had seen enough. Time to load the jets. But what makes stealth fighters so deadly? At 0300 hours on Friday morning, Two F-35A Lightning II stealth aircraft begin rolling down the runway at Eglin Air Force Base. Each of these $80 million jets is equipped with enough firepower to destroy a city block. The group they are targeting has chosen a highly dangerous line of work. The F-35 is not a typical fighter jet. It is a highly advanced aircraft covered in radar-absorbing material. Enemy radar cannot detect it until it is too late. By the time it appears, its weapons are already in motion. Each aircraft is loaded with two GBU-31 Joint Direct Attack munitions stored inside the fuselage. These bombs are not unguided. The JDAM system transforms standard 2,000-pound bombs into highly accurate weapons. GPS technology allows them to strike within 10 feet of a target. That level of accuracy makes them effective from 40,000 feet above the ground. Each 2,000-pound bomb holds 945 pounds of tritonal explosive. This amount of energy can break through 11 feet of solid concrete or 22 feet of earth. It is designed to destroy reinforced structures, such as underground bunkers or fortified labs. At 03:15, both aircraft lift off into the early morning sky. Their flight time to the target is 2 hours and 43 minutes. At this time, the individuals at the remote compound are still asleep. They do not know that United States aircraft are already in the air. The F-35 cruises at 36,000 feet and remains undetectable by ground-based radar. Its stealth coating absorbs radar signals instead of reflecting them. So to most radar systems, the aircraft appears as either a small bird or not at all. The key technology is found inside the cockpit. The pilot's helmet display provides a full view of the ground below. Thermal sensors reveal heat sources in real time. The onboard systems have already calculated wind speed, air pressure, and gravity. The bombs are fully guided and programmed before release. At 05:58, the aircraft reach their designated point, 50 miles from the target. The Reaper drone sends final targeting data. Building 1 shows intense heat activity. The lab is running at full capacity. The timing is precise. Maximum damage. Low chance of escape. At exactly 0600 hours, the lead pilot arms the weapons. The targeting system locks onto the GPS coordinates for Building 1. The bomb bay doors open quietly. From this height, the target will not hear what is coming. At 0601, the first GBU-31 is released. Its fins open, and it begins its 3-minute descent, using satellite data to guide its path. 15 seconds later, the second F-35 drops its weapon. The second target is Building 2, where the processed materials are stored. The pilot observes as the bomb separates cleanly from the aircraft. Both jets then change direction, climbing to 40,000 feet. Their role in the operation is complete. Now, they observe the results. Those running the jungle lab believed their remote location would keep them safe. They did not account for stealth aircraft that cannot be seen or stopped. The bombs were already falling when Cartel guards finally looked up. But what happens when 4,000 pounds of explosives hit the earth? At exactly 0604 hours, the first GBU-31 breaks through the jungle canopy at 1,200 feet per second. The guards on the ground have less than 1 second to notice what's coming. The bomb's hardened steel shell drives 3 feet into the concrete floor of Building 1 before its fuse sets off the blast. What follows is a violent display of force. 945 pounds of tritonal explosive becomes a massive wave of hot gas moving at 26,000 feet per second. The pressure reaches 300,000 pounds per square inch. Concrete walls that could stand against the strongest storms fall apart instantly. The blast destroys everything in a 50-foot circle. Metal machines worth $2 million turn into vapor. Storage tanks break open, starting fires that reach 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The lab's entire operation is gone in under 2 seconds. At 0604 and 15 seconds, the second bomb hits Building 2 with exact accuracy. This structure holds the finished material about $50 million worth of product in heavy-duty containers. The impact creates a fireball. Every kilogram burns quickly, setting off a chain reaction. The flames grow so bright they light up the forest like a second sun. The explosion is strong enough to register as an earthquake more than 200 miles away. Above the scene, the Reaper drone records everything in thermal imaging. Its sensors detect temperatures at ground zero, going over 4,000 degrees. That is enough heat to melt steel and remove almost all physical evidence. Building 3 collapses differently. The shock from both bombs, arriving seconds apart, weakens and then destroys the structure. The first wave cracks the base. The second brings down the walls. 15 people were inside. They never had a chance to respond. By 0605, the main blasts are finished, but smaller explosions are still happening. Trucks with fuel parked behind Building 2 catch fire, one after another. Each sends fireballs 200 feet high. The trees begin burning, creating a blaze that can be seen from space. As the flames spread, chemical storage areas began to explode. Tanks of acetone go up like bombs. Containers of sulfuric acid burst, pouring burning liquid through the area. A huge smoke cloud rises 10,000 feet into the sky before winds carry it away from any towns. At 0610, the Reaper confirms the target has been destroyed. 3 wide craters now sit where the buildings used to be. The biggest hole is 60 feet across and 20 feet deep. Nothing living could survive that level of destruction. The lab took 8 months to build. The Air Force removed it in 6 minutes. Help won't reach the area for another 4 hours. By then, almost everything will have burned. What's left behind? Twisted metal, melted concrete, and 3 large, clean holes in the ground. The group behind the lab loses more than just buildings. They lose $50 million of product, $10 million of equipment, and $5 million of materials. But most of all, they lose the belief that remote locations can protect them. The blast leaves a damaged zone 300 meters wide. Nothing will grow there for years. The soil is poisoned by the chemicals that were burned. Nature will not return for a long time. At 0630, both F-35s land safely at Eglin Air Force Base. Total time in the air, 3 hours and 27 minutes. The mission is marked as a complete success, and the message is clear. Trying to hide dangerous operations in the jungle does not work. The bombs turned buildings into craters, but the real show was just beginning. What happens when chemistry meets high explosives? At exactly 0606 hours, the first fuel truck explodes like a firework. The group had stored 500 gallons of diesel behind Building 2 to run their generators. That choice proves costly. The heat from the burning chemicals causes the fuel to ignite, sending a cloud of fire 300 feet into the trees. The explosion sets off a chain reaction. Storage tanks around the area begin to burst as the rising heat pushes them past safe levels. Each tank holds industrial liquids used in drug production. Acetone, methanol, toluene, all highly flammable. All are stored too close together. Any safety plans the group had are now gone. At 0607, 3 acetone tanks explode at the same time. The shock breaks windows in a village 12 miles away. Local sensors register it as a magnitude 3.8 earthquake. What was meant to be a drug lab now behaves more like a bomb-making site. Beneath Building 1, analysts spot something that satellite images missed: an underground storage area holding the group's full supply of chemicals. Around $2 million worth, stored in a concrete room. The first blast above cracked the ceiling of that space. Now hot gases are pouring inside. By 0608, containers of hydrochloric acid begin to fail. The acid breaks through barriers and reaches the stockpile. What follows is a chain of chemical reactions. Sulfuric acid and acetone combine in a violent, heat-producing reaction. The temperature rises to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Hot enough to melt copper. Hot enough to turn dirt into glass. Hot enough to cause a second crater below the first one. The underground blast sends debris 2,000 feet into the air. Large chunks of concrete fall across the jungle for 10 minutes. Trees 500 meters away catch fire from hot metal landing on them. At 0615, the Reaper drone records the largest explosion so far. The group's propane tanks finally overheat. 12 large tanks holding 20,000 gallons of gas explode all at once. The result is a massive fuel-air blast that changes the local airflow. Oxygen is pulled in from half a mile away and then pushed out in a heated wave. Birds flying nearby vanish from the sudden temperature rise. Flames flash through 50 acres of trees. Rescue teams listening to the radios hear the explosions from 30 miles away. Some locals report seeing a meteor crash. Others think it was a plane. Few guess the real cause. Two American jets removed a major drug site using advanced weapons. By 0620, the fires have spread to everything that can burn nearby. The jungle itself becomes fuel. Trees that have stood for 100 years explode from the heat building inside them. The fire begins to feed itself, spinning in circles as the wind shifts. From space, satellites pick up the heat. One NASA satellite marks it as a possible volcano. The burn area shows as a bright white dot on thermal scans, hotter than anything else in the region. Cameras left behind record the site's last moments. Towers fall as the steel holding them softens. Fences vanish completely. Roads and checkpoints melt into the ground. At 0645, the final explosion shakes the area. A hidden pile of weapons goes up in flames. The group had stored military tools underground, just in case, but they had not prepared for an airstrike. The blast includes 500 pounds of plastic explosive, shells, grenades, and missile parts. All of it explodes together. Seismographs in 3 different countries pick up the event. A cloud rises high into the sky, visible from 50 miles away. Pieces of burning metal fall from 8,000 feet. Airports nearby pause flights. People in Guatemala City report hearing sounds like thunder, even though the skies are clear. By 0700 hours, the fires begin to fade. Not because they have been stopped, but because there is nothing left to burn. What used to be a 15-acre base now looks like a burned-out crater. 3 large holes show where buildings once stood. By 0730, the Reaper finishes scanning the site. Everything has been destroyed. No people are found. The goal of the mission has been fully met. What was once a $100 million lab is now a $100 million crater. The message is clear. Set up drug labs in areas under watch, and the response may be fast and final. The group learned that trying to challenge American air power is not a fair fight. Some lessons are taught in classrooms. Others come from 2,000-pound bombs. A deafening blast rips through the jungle as a cartel drug lab erupts in fire and smoke. The United States Army's M109 Paladin, armed with a 155mm cannon, strikes with deadly precision. Its shell hits a hidden narco facility, sending shockwaves through enemy territory. What and how much went up in smoke inside that lab? And how did American forces detect and destroy it before the cartel could react? Join us as we uncover the power and mystery behind the United States M109 in action. Drone operators lock onto a remote jungle compound, pumping out chemicals 24 hours a day. Hidden beneath thick tree cover, the cartel facility blends into the terrain, but not from above. A satellite feed pinpoints the lab's main structure at coordinates 046 north by 178 west. Infrared imaging shows heat signatures from 4 large reactors. Small pipelines snake outward from the main building, feeding into makeshift storage huts. Around the perimeter, armed guards patrol narrow paths linking generator sheds and lookout posts. The jungle canopy makes direct visuals difficult, but high-altitude drones equipped with thermal cameras scan for routine patterns. Analysts confirm a consistent schedule of vehicle arrivals every 6 hours. This is not just a stash site, it is a high-output processing lab and a command hub. Mission planning includes handling communications and fire control input, confirming elevation angle, barometric pressure, wind speed, and charge weight. 2.2 kilometers southeast of the target zone, the M109 Paladin will take position behind a natural hill. Camouflage netting, jungle foliage, and minimal engine heat output are expected to keep the system masked from aerial detection. Once stationary, it will be linked to the live targeting network, synced with satellite data in drone coordinates via an encrypted relay. The crew will consist of 5 personnel, 1 commander, 1 gunner, 1 loader, and 2 fire control technicians. Each role will operate in sequence under a tightly timed routine. The fire mission will begin with environmental calibration, measuring elevation, barometric pressure, humidity, wind speed, and charge load. These values will feed into the onboard fire control computer, which processes up to 72 inputs in real time. Targeting data will be confirmed via laser triangulation using coordinates from the overhead drone's thermal lock. From data sync to fire-ready status, the total prep time is expected to be no more than 24 seconds. Within 48 seconds of the fire command, 4 rounds will be fired. Each shell will be steel-encased and equipped with a programmable fuse, calibrated to detonate either mid-air or shortly after impact, depending on structural resistance. Approximately 12 minutes after impact, follow-up drone reconnaissance will assess strike results. Projected outcomes include a blast radius exceeding 300 meters, full destruction of the main lab, and widespread structural collapse. Surrounding vegetation may burn back, exposing ruptured pipelines and wreckage. Thermal imaging is expected to show 0 heat signatures, no personnel, no vehicles, and no remaining reactor activity. If the blackout is confirmed and no further movement is detected, the site will be marked neutralized. Updated coordinates 046.3 north by 178.2 west should reflect a blackened crater surrounded by a scorched canopy. Sensor sweeps will continue to scan for comms traffic or fallback positions. Once strike effects are confirmed, the Paladin crew will proceed with system reset protocols. Fuses cleared, breach cleaned, and pressure values logged. The gun will remain on standby for further fire missions. If successful, the lab will be offline. The jungle may reclaim the ground in time, but not before command confirms total silence. The next move depends on intelligence confirmed, calculated, and ready. The jungle breathes silence, but fire control screens light up. What war machine do you send when stealth meets steel? 10 kilometers from the Cartel compound, tucked beneath camouflage netting, an M109 Paladin waits in low idle. Its diesel engine hums at 675 horsepower, barely audible beneath the thick canopy. From this firing base, the crew prepares for a coordinated strike against a chemical lab hidden deep in the jungle interior. The M109 is not just a howitzer, it is a mobile artillery platform designed for fast, decisive fire missions. Built around a 155mm main gun, it can reach targets up to 30 kilometers away. Today's mission needs only a third of that range. The gunner checks the elevation angle. Crew members adjust the azimuth dial based on final coordinates received from overhead drones. GPS input 046.3 north, 178.2 west confirms the location. Thermal images sent from the sky show clear heat signatures from fuel drums and active reactors. The lab is operational. The clock is ticking. At the rear of the Paladin, the loader swings open the breech. A high explosive round slides into place, followed by a powder charge. The automated fire control system, built into the vehicle's main console, crunches real-time environmental data, air pressure, wind direction, and barrel wear. It computes the perfect firing solution in under 20 seconds. This system gives the M109 its edge. While older artillery units rely on manual adjustments, the Paladin uses onboard electronics to track, aim, and fire with surgical precision. It can fire 4 rounds per minute, enough to saturate a compound in under 60 seconds. The commander calls the fire sequence. The barrel elevates. The suspension shifts slightly, balancing the vehicle's weight for recoil absorption. The first shell is armed with a delayed fuse, programmed to detonate milliseconds after impact for maximum internal destruction. At time 0800, the first round leaves the barrel. The vehicle jolts. A sharp, controlled recoil kicks the gun backward and resets. Within 15 seconds, the second round is in the air. A total of 4 shells were launched in under 1 minute. Each is aimed at a different section of the compound: the central reactor, the storage hut, the fuel cache, and the generator unit. 10 seconds later, drone feeds show 4 separate flashes blooming through the jungle canopy. Black smoke curls upward. Heat signatures vanish in sequence. 1 reactor is completely gone. The power unit is dark. Chemical fires erupt across the blast zone. The Paladin does not linger. After the final shell, the engine revs. The crew resets the barrel and retracts the stabilizers. Within 2 minutes, the vehicle is back in motion, moving to a secondary location. Speed and mobility are its defense. This kind of strike relies on real-time data. Drones and satellites do the spotting. The fire control computer does the math. But it is the human crew coordinating, loading, and adjusting under pressure. that makes this machine work. Against static, high-value Cartel targets like jungle drug labs, the M109 provides what no airstrike can. Surprise from the ground, no risk to pilots, and zero exposure. The lab is silent now, and the Paladin is already gone. Coordinates are locked, fuse timers are set, and the jungle won't see it coming. What happens when steel and silence finally meet? At time 0820, the M109 crew receives final clearance. The jungle heat hangs still, but inside the howitzer, everything moves fast and by the book. The fire control computer finishes its last input, wind speed, 2 meters per second southwest. Range, 10 kilometers. Elevation angle, 53 degrees. The crew operates as one. The loader slides the first 155 millimeter high explosive round into the chamber. The breech slams shut. Propellant is locked behind the shell. The gunner verifies the angle. The commander checks the timer settings. Each fuse is set for airburst, just meters above ground level to maximize spread. At time 0823, the first round fires. The recoil rocks the vehicle. The shell climbs in a high arc over the jungle. It travels for 35 seconds before impact. It lands just outside the northeast perimeter, 20 meters from the target. The explosion sends a shock wave across the treetop. The blast is loud, but the compound still stands. Adjustments follow fast. The onboard computer recalculates based on the new impact point. The system now shifts to MRSI mode, multiple rounds simultaneous impact. This tactic allows the M109 to fire 5 rounds along separate ballistic paths so they all land within 2 seconds of each other. It takes only 28 seconds to load and fire all 5. Each shell is programmed for a different entry vector. The first aims for the southern wall, the second targets the fuel cache, the third is meant for the main processing tent. The fourth and fifth are split between storage bunkers on opposite sides. From above, drones capture it all. At time 0825, 5 points of light streak upward. The jungle canopy sways gently. Then thunder. In a 2-second window, all 5 shells impact. The ground trembles. Heat blooms rise straight through the treetops. Concrete walls crack. Roofs lift off support beams. Pipes snap, spilling chemicals that ignite instantly. Orange flames chase black smoke. Secondary explosions follow, small but sharp. These likely come from stored fuels or reactive agents. No one is seen fleeing the compound. By time 0826, heat signatures are gone. The site is still burning, but operational life has ended. Inside the M109, the crew secures the chamber, resets the computer, and begins their withdrawal protocol. Hydropneumatic suspension absorbs the load as the vehicle turns. Its 675 horsepower engine kicks up dust as it moves off-site, heading to a new fire base before any counter-surveillance can react. The jungle starts to go quiet again, but where once there was a drug lab, only scorched earth remains. This is how the United States uses precision artillery, not for mass destruction, but for quick, targeted strikes against hardened locations. The M109 Paladin's firepower, combined with satellite data and drone recon, removes the need for ground troops or airstrikes in difficult terrain. No emotion, no noise beyond what's needed, just numbers, steel, and seconds. The next objective is already uploading. The jungle shakes, but one target still stands. What happens when high explosive accuracy meets the cartel's hidden command center? At time 0832, aerial drones confirm the outer compound is neutralized. The secondary fires begin to die down. Heat scans show no civilians in the area. What remains is the core of the operation, a hardened structure buried beneath a thick canopy and reinforced walls. This is the central lab, the command node. It has not yet been touched. The crew of the M109 now prepares for Phase 2. The Paladin's targeting system loads a new fire mission. This time, the shell of choice is the M982 Excalibur, a GPS-guided, extended-range projectile designed for precise strikes. Unlike standard artillery rounds, Excalibur uses satellite navigation to adjust its flight path in real time. Each Excalibur shell costs $112,000, but its value lies in accuracy. When fired from 30 kilometers away, it can still land within 2 meters of its intended target. At 0835, the crew loads the first shell. The process is more exact than before. The digital fire control system confirms the GPS lock. The target, a two-story concrete structure with a steel-reinforced roof. Inside are power generators, chemical reactors, and processing vats for synthetic drugs. The blast must destroy the structure, but not trigger widespread chemical fallout. The firing angle is adjusted to 61 degrees to account for elevation and terrain. Muzzle velocity is recalculated to achieve the optimal arc for target impact. The estimated range is 23 kilometers. Wind speed is measured at 1.5 meters per second, requiring a slight correction to maintain accuracy. Time 0-836. The first Excalibur round is fired. The shell leaves the barrel with a sonic crack. As it climbs, tiny fins deploy from its base. These steer the projectile mid-flight, using GPS signals from overhead satellites. Course corrections happen automatically as it closes in on the target. At 32 seconds into flight, the Excalibur shell begins its terminal phase. It adjusts slightly to the east, drifting no more than 1 meter from its plotted course. At 0-837, it hits. The explosion is sharp and compact. The round lands within 4 meters of the building's main control room. The steel roof buckles, walls collapse inward. Inside, racks of chemical tanks rupture and ignite. Thick black smoke rises straight up. Electrical systems go offline. A second shell follows, this one aimed at the backup power structure. It strikes 10 seconds later, delivering another precise blow. The building ceases all visible function. No chain reaction fire, no chemical spread. The GPS targeting ensures the damage stays locked inside the perimeter. From above, heat sensors now show a single plume. No signs of movement, no remaining hotspots. The core lab is out of operation. In the M109, the crew verifies the outcome with drone feeds. Their job is not done until the impact is confirmed. Once verified, they initiate cooldown and reload routines. They do not celebrate, they move on. Excalibur rounds are not used often. Their cost is high, but in jungle terrain where airstrikes are risky and ground teams cannot reach the target, GPS-guided artillery becomes the tool of choice. It reduces time on target. It avoids civilian risk. It finishes the mission with fewer shots fired. By 0-842, the Paladin is already repositioning. New coordinates are uploaded to the fire control unit. Surveillance units continue to scan the area. But the core facility, the heart of the operation, is now just rubble and smoke. This is how modern artillery works. Not just through sheer explosive power, but through precise calculations, digital targeting systems, and coordinated crew execution that ensures each shot hits exactly where intended. The strike is precise, but not silent. Now the jungle stirs. Is the M109 already in the enemy's sights? Within 60 seconds of impact, encrypted enemy chatter lights up on the mission feed. Fragmented bursts, likely in local dialect, ripple from a ridge 2 kilometers south of the blast zone. Audio teams confirm the cartel knows they have been hit and they are preparing to strike back. Inside the M109 Paladin, crew members waste no time. The gun is locked into travel mode, breech sealed, hydraulics retract. The driver shifts the vehicle into reverse. At just under 25 kilometers per hour, the Paladin is no speed demon, but it does not have to be. What matters is timing. Its hydro-pneumatic suspension stiffens under the sudden shift. The entire system adjusts for weight distribution as it rumbles across the soft jungle floor. The goal is simple: clear the grid before enemy rounds can triangulate their position. 90 seconds later, the Paladin has moved over 400 meters. At this distance, with dense vegetation and temperature layering, its infrared signature blends back into the environment. From above, it looks like just another part of the jungle floor. Its radar footprint disappears into natural ground clutter. The vehicle becomes a ghost. Overhead, a small quad-rotor drone begins its second pass over the strike zone. Its onboard thermal camera scans for heat, movement, and residual fires. What was once a fortified drug lab is now a crater measuring nearly 40 meters across. The building's metal framework has folded in on itself. Storage tanks, some as tall as small trucks, lie torn open. Thick chemical residue leaks into the surrounding soil, bubbling in places where internal heat hasn't fully dissipated. Several containers are scorched black from the inside out. consistent with internal combustion caused by chemical mixing. Infrared returns confirm a complete shutdown. The lab is dead. No signs of power systems, generators, lights, or electronic signals. Electrical activity has flatlined across the entire compound. 3 guard posts that once ring the compound, 2 wooden, 1 reinforced, have been wiped out. All 3 were positioned for overwatch. Now they are nothing but scattered debris. One blast appears to have triggered stored munitions. Secondary explosions widen the impact footprint and push debris well beyond the compound fence line. By now, the command has real-time drone feeds, GPS telemetry, and orbital satellite confirmation. The strike is complete. Mission goals are met, central processing destroyed, bulk precursors neutralized, leadership structures severed. Inside the Paladin, the crew switches to tactical listening mode. They monitor low-frequency radio waves for retaliatory drone launches or indirect fire commands. So far, nothing. Even so, protocols remain strict. The Paladin holds position under tree cover, allowing its heat signature to cool. A camouflage net is partially deployed using local foliage and pre-cut thermal mesh. This is not a full retreat, it is controlled repositioning. If needed, the crew can fire again in under 60 seconds. In the meantime, recon teams on foot sweep the blast radius from a nearby ridge. They collect soil samples, inspect air quality, and assess remaining contamination risk. So far, chemical vapor is present but stable. Wind conditions are calm, and surrounding villages are unaffected. The jungle begins to fall quiet again. No more engine noise, no warning alarms, no shouts. Only drifting ash, scorched leaves, and the deep, broken silence that follows sudden, absolute destruction. 1 hour after impact, the entire strike zone is dark. The blast crater still emits heat, but nothing alive moves inside it. Sensors detect no personnel movement, no recovery teams, and no vehicles approaching. Whatever command structure the cartel had in this sector, it has collapsed. The Paladin powers down its primary systems, staying alert but conserving fuel. Crew members begin post-strike maintenance. They clean the breach, reset the fire control computer, cross-check GPS drift against satellite timing. Every action is logged, every movement calculated. This is how modern artillery moves, quietly, efficiently, and without delay. No room for guesswork, no waiting for confirmation after the fact. The drone sees, the gun fires, the team disappears. By the end of the second hour, the strike team begins withdrawal toward the nearest exfiltration point. Support units with electronic warfare gear sweep the airwaves to mass signatures. The jungle swallows them whole. Behind them, a once thriving drug lab is now a ruined shell. The cartel's key infrastructure, its chemicals, its power, and its security are gone. The message is clear. Precision fire leaves no second chances. Amid a storm of missiles, Israel quietly unleashed a weapon no one saw coming. A drone so stealthy it slipped through Iranian defenses and struck with deadly precision. Armed with cutting-edge sensors and guided munitions, it mapped targets, gathered intel, and hit deep inside enemy territory. Its surprise debut shifted the balance of power mid-war, giving Israel unmatched reach and accuracy. But what exactly makes this drone so deadly? And how did it reshape the battlefield? Join us as we uncover the incredible powers of Israel's brand new drone, unseen and unmatched until now. The 12-day war began with a clear objective: to neutralize Iran's nuclear and missile threat. But within days, it evolved into a remarkable demonstration of Israel's technological dominance. During the war and in the days that followed, Israel quietly pulled off several groundbreaking technological advances, especially in the use of drones and in the robotic production of air defense interceptor missiles. These major developments were revealed by Israel's Defense Ministry on Tuesday, shedding light on how the country is restructuring the future of warfare. One of the most surprising revelations, though, was Israel's long-range drone operations. According to the ministry, Israeli drones logged thousands of flight hours over Iranian territory, even though Iran lies between 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers away, depending on the region. The drone flight hours linked to the conflict were 6 times higher than Israel's usual total for an entire year. For years, the Israeli Air Force has effectively used drones to monitor nearby areas like Gaza and Lebanon. These regions lie directly along Israel's borders, making it easy for drones to travel back and forth from launch bases within the country. But flying drones over Iran was a completely different challenge. Until now, sending drones that far into hostile airspace was considered nearly impossible. Most of Israel's drones are not designed to cover such long distances on their own. For example, the Kachav and Shovel drone models each have a range of around 1,000 kilometers. This means they are not capable of flying directly to Iran and returning to base without help. However, recent developments in strategic planning made these long-distance missions possible. One potential solution involved mid-air refueling. While the details remain classified, it's believed that some drones were able to extend their range during flight. The presence of United States naval vessels in the region could have provided launch or support platforms. It's also possible that Israeli naval forces were deployed to help facilitate these deep strike operations. These partnerships and tactics may have allowed Israeli drones to complete missions that were once thought beyond reach. The ability to conduct surveillance and potential strikes from such a distance without risking pilots has opened up new strategic options. These drones may have been used for gathering intelligence, monitoring enemy movement, and even jamming enemy systems. Some drones were also likely equipped with weapons, allowing them to carry out precision strikes while remaining hard to detect. This extended reach, powered by satellite navigation and advanced software, now gives Israel a strong advantage in observing and reacting to threats far beyond its borders. The impact of these drone missions was massive. According to the ministry, drones were involved in approximately 500 separate attacks on targets inside Iran. That number represents about 50% of all aerial attacks carried out during the conflict. This shows just how important drones have become, not only for intelligence gathering, but also for direct precision strikes on enemy assets. These drone operations also played a major role in neutralizing Iranian missile bases, air defense systems, and command centers, often without risking human pilots. The ministry emphasized that this success was not by chance. It came after years of investment in drone development, navigation systems, long-range planning, and international cooperation. Alongside the drone achievements, the ministry also highlighted its key role in developing Israel's advanced, multi-layered missile defense network. This system includes the Iron Dome for short-range threats, David's Sling for medium-range interceptions, and Arrow 3 for high-altitude missile defense. All these layers work together during the Iran conflict to protect Israeli skies from waves of ballistic missiles and drones. Together, the combination of long-range drone warfare and missile defense has given Israel a powerful edge. The war with Iran pushed the military to stretch its capabilities further than ever before, and it succeeded. What seemed impossible just a few years ago is now a proven reality. And as new technologies continue to emerge, Israel's defense forces appear more prepared than ever for the challenges ahead. One of the biggest concerns during and after the Iran war has been whether Israel could keep up with the demand for interceptor missiles, especially the advanced Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 systems used to defend against ballistic missiles launched by Iran, the Houthis, and other hostile forces. These long-range missiles are extremely dangerous and require highly advanced technology to intercept, making the availability of interceptors a critical issue. For weeks, many wondered whether Israel was running low on these crucial defense tools. But according to senior officials at the Defense Ministry, Israel never reached what they call a red line, a point at which the country would not have enough interceptors to protect itself. Despite the heavy usage during the conflict, the ministry insisted that there was still some breathing room in Israel's stockpile. Ministry sources explain that while Israel still has enough Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 interceptors to handle current threats, the rapid use of resources and the ongoing waves of Iranian drones and ballistic missiles have made it urgent to expand the inventory, prompting the defense industry to introduce robotic automation for the first time to speed up production of interceptors for the Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow 3 systems. The use of automation has several key benefits. First, it significantly speeds up production, allowing Israel to replace spent missiles much faster than before. Second, robots reduce the chance of human error, which is especially important when dealing with complex defense systems. Third, by lowering labor costs, automation could make it possible for Israel to buy more interceptors in the future than it ever has in the past. Thanks to these robotic systems, missile production times were drastically reduced. The robots could work around the clock, producing high-quality parts with speed and precision. This ensured that Israel's air defense forces never ran short of critical interceptors, even during days of non-stop missile attacks. Defense officials revealed that without this automation, the supply chain might have struggled to keep pace. Now, with this system in place, Israel is better prepared for future conflicts where fast, large-scale production of missile defense components could be a matter of survival. The Defense Ministry added that these advancements are just the beginning. New designs, upgrades, and further automation are already in development, all based on lessons learned during the Iran conflict. In just a short time, war has forced innovation, and Israel now has a faster, smarter, and more flexible defense system ready for whatever comes next. Defense experts warn that adapting quickly is not just wise, it's essential. The threat of ballistic missiles now extends beyond Iran, with groups like the Houthi rebels in Yemen proving their ability to launch long-range strikes. With multiple fronts emerging, Israel must ensure it has a large, ready supply of interceptors to defend its skies. Against this growing backdrop of regional threats, Israel's drone capabilities have taken a major leap. Building on that momentum, Flying Production, a division of Elbit Systems, has now started full-scale production of the advanced X-Intra combat drone. Designed to boost frontline missions, the X-Intra expands on the proven performance of smaller drones like the Zur, which the IDF has already deployed in operations across Gaza and near the Lebanese border. What sets the X-Intra apart is its impressive payload capacity. It can carry around 30 kilograms, which is more than twice the load that the Zur drone can handle. Despite this heavy lifting ability, the X-Intra is cleverly designed to remain modular and compact. It can be folded down small enough to fit in a padded bag, allowing just one soldier to carry it easily. The drone's developers say it can be unpacked, assembled, and ready for action in less than 2 minutes, making it incredibly quick to deploy in urgent situations. The X-Intra is described as a multi-mission platform, meaning it can perform a wide range of important tasks. It can deliver vital supplies directly to troops on the ground, such as medical kits or ammunition, which can be critical during intense fighting. In addition to transport duties, the drone is equipped with advanced imaging systems that allow it to carry out high-altitude surveillance, monitoring enemy movements, spotting threats, and gathering crucial intelligence from afar. Beyond reconnaissance and supply delivery, the X-Intra can also carry out precision strikes, using guided weapons to target enemy positions accurately while minimizing collateral damage. This flexibility allows commanders to use the drone for different types of missions, depending on the needs of the moment. Additionally, these drones provide faster, safer, and often cheaper ways to support soldiers, gather information, and carry out attacks compared to traditional methods. Moreover, the ability for a single soldier to carry and quickly deploy such a capable drone adds a new level of agility and power to infantry units. Flying Production became part of Elbit Systems in 2019 as a key step in the company's plan to grow its presence in drone technology, a sector that is rapidly expanding within the defense industry. Located in the Rosh Hayin Industrial Zone, Flying Production has amassed more than 20,000 operational flight hours with its range of drones. Although the company has supplied drones to several foreign militaries, it has not publicly named which countries are its customers. Eyal Dahan, the company's CEO, explained that lessons learned from battlefield use of earlier drone models, like the Magni X and Terminator, motivated the company to equip its newer drones with advanced electro-optical payloads. These payloads, which are used for surveillance and targeting, can be quite costly, with some systems priced as high as $500,000. In response to practical needs discovered during the ongoing conflict in Gaza, where fighting often takes place in densely populated areas, the Israeli Defense Forces recently completed successful trials using the Zur drone to deliver blood units. These blood supplies are carried in shock-absorbing containers to protect them during flight, enabling medics on the ground to receive critical supplies within minutes. This rapid delivery can make a real difference in providing first aid and saving lives during emergencies. Recognizing their growing importance, Israel has moved quickly to expand its drone fleet. Since the war began on October 7th, demand for drones has surged dramatically. Over recent months, Israel's Ministry of Defense has placed orders worth more than 400 million shekels, approximately 106 million US dollars, with domestic defense companies for drones of different sizes and capabilities. Of this total, about 150 million shekels was awarded to Elbit Systems alone. Other companies that received contracts from Israel's Ministry of Defense include Extend, Copterpix, and Aerodrome. The Defense Ministry is planning to issue more tenders soon to speed up drone purchases and fill equipment shortages. These shortages became clear when both regular and reserve units of the Israel Defense Forces reported missing gear at the start of the war. Some soldiers even turned to social media to ask for supplies directly. This rapid pace of innovation is already paying off on the battlefield. Nowhere is this more evident than in Israel's air defense systems, which played a central role during the Iran war. According to the Israel Defense Forces, during the height of the conflict, nearly 1,000 drones were launched by Iran toward Israeli territory. Yet in what defense officials are calling an extraordinary success, about 99% of those drones were shot down before reaching their targets. Only 2 managed to strike anything on the ground, and thankfully, no Israeli lives were lost. This impressive level of performance highlights how far Israel's air defense capabilities have come. It also shows the importance of heavy investment in advanced defense technologies. Experts estimate that the country's missile defense systems saved Israel from suffering damage worth between 50 and 70 billion shekels. In contrast, the actual physical damage from the conflict came to around 10 billion shekels. This major difference underlines how much destruction was prevented, both in lives and infrastructure. Much of this success comes not just from Israel's own innovations, but also from international cooperation. Over recent years, Israel has worked closely with the United States, Germany, and several other allies to improve its defensive strategies and technologies. These partnerships have helped Israel learn new ways to use and adapt its missile defense systems for modern threats, knowledge that proved crucial in the face of Iran's large-scale drone and missile attacks. This cooperation also plays a key role in what defense analysts are calling a new technological race between Israel and Iran. After this conflict, both nations are expected to make rapid advancements in their offensive and defensive capabilities. Israel, in particular, is using the lessons from this war to guide its next steps in missile defense development. These steps will likely include upgrades to current systems and the creation of new ones, tailored to the emerging threats in the region. Another important aspect of Israel's defense success is its growing reliance on homegrown innovation. Over the past few years, Israel has invested in a wide range of startups that focus on niche defense solutions, everything from advanced sensors to AI-guided tracking systems. During the war with Iran, many of these startup technologies were already in use, integrated into different layers of Israel's air defense. This fast track from development to deployment reflects the agility of Israel's defense ecosystem. These startups, often supported through government programs and military partnerships, are now being credited with helping to detect and stop incoming threats more efficiently. Their involvement shows how defense is no longer limited to large weapons manufacturers. Small, specialized tech companies are now essential players on the battlefield. Building on these technological advances, on Tuesday, Israel's Defense Ministry released new video footage and detailed findings from Operation Rising Lion. The report highlighted Israel's impressive progress during the recent war with Iran, revealing how the country nearly stopped all Iranian drones and used over 12,000 satellite images to guide deep strikes inside Iran. The ministry explained that Israel's multi-layered air defense system, made up of the Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow systems, blocked most threats during the conflict. Officials said these defenses prevented about 50 billion shekels, or roughly $13.5 billion, in possible damage. Some of the missile systems used had been developed over the past 20 years or more, including special weapons designed specifically to target Iran's nuclear sites and ballistic missile assets. Brigadier General Dr. Danny Gold from the Directorate of Defense Research and Development, known as MAFAT, led the briefing. He revealed that the findings show Israel's clear edge in technology and operations. According to him, technologies that were created over 25 years ago and some that were completed only weeks before the war were used on the battlefield with great success. Israel had totally succeeded in defense, offense, weakening Iran within its own territory, and protecting the homeland by combining cyber tools, space technology, digital warfare, and other advanced systems into a powerful force. The Missile Defense Organization reported that 86% of ballistic missiles launched by Iran were shot down, helped by recently upgraded Arrow missile systems installed just a week before the fighting began. The ministry noted that the damage prevented was 7 times higher than the damage actually suffered. Meanwhile, more than 99% of Iranian drones were intercepted, thanks to a breakthrough Iron Dome test against drone swarms conducted in March. This war also marked a historic first. Israeli drones operated non-stop in the so-called Third Ring, which means deep inside Iranian territory. They carried out more than 500 precise strikes and logged thousands of flight hours over Iran. These unmanned aerial vehicles lowered risks to manned jets, hunted missile launchers, saved many lives, and reduced damage to Israel, the ministry said. Combined with Operation Iron Swords, drones made up 60% of Israeli Air Force flight hours and were responsible for half of all targeted eliminations. Israel's satellite network also played a crucial role. The Space Directorate said satellites took more than 12,000 high-resolution pictures over Iran and provided safe, reliable military communications. We captured images covering tens of millions of square kilometers day and night, helping to find targets quickly without putting troops in danger, the Directorate explained. At the onset of the Iran war and throughout Israel's effort to secure control of Tehran's skies, defense officials revealed that the Israeli military relied on a range of domestically developed standoff weapons and precision-guided munitions. These systems, the result of years of research by Mafat in Israel's defense industry, allowed Israel to strike targets accurately from a distance, even as Iran tried to jam or disrupt those attacks electronically. The Defense Ministry noted that one of Israel's key advantages was its ability to maintain precision under heavy electronic interference. This was made possible by advanced targeting systems and self-defense technologies developed in-house. Fighter jets operating deep over Iranian territory were reportedly fitted with these systems, enabling them to dodge enemy missile threats while executing their missions with high accuracy. Moshe Fatal, the head of Israel's Missile Defense Organization, emphasized that one of the war's most significant achievements was the seamless integration of Israel's various defense systems. He also pointed out the vital role played by close cooperation with U.S. defense platforms, which added to Israel's strategic edge. Looking ahead, Fatal said that Israel is already preparing for future confrontations. The country is upgrading its current systems, accelerating production, and developing new technologies to stay ahead of growing threats in the region. He also hinted that Israel is keeping several defense innovations under wraps, ready to surprise any adversary who underestimates the nation's readiness and reach. The cartels have money, weapons, and power, and for years they've evaded U.S. forces, but there's one fatal mistake that would seal their fate: targeting a U.S. national treasure. For decades, the B-2 Spirit has struck from the shadows, silent and unstoppable. But after its fearsome display in the Middle East, whispers began spreading. Cartel strongholds are now rumored to be arming heat-seeking missiles and planning to shoot down the bomber. Could they really pull it off? Or would it trigger something far worse? Join us as we reveal what happens when a drug cartel tries to take down the U.S. bomber. The B-2 Spirit is one of the most advanced military aircraft ever created, designed by Northrop Grumman to serve as the cornerstone of the United States' strategic bombing capability. It was conceived not for speed or dogfighting, but for invisibility. Operating at the intersection of aerospace engineering and stealth warfare, this bomber is intended to penetrate deep into enemy territory without detection, delivering precision strikes with devastating payloads. The aircraft's defining feature is its flying wing configuration, a design that lacks a vertical stabilizer in traditional fuselage. This aerodynamic structure, combined with specialized radar-absorbing materials, allows the B-2 to remain undetected by most enemy defense systems. Its smooth, tailless shape helps deflect radar waves, while the outer coating, composed of classified radar-absorbent polymers known as RAM, absorbs what little radar signal remains. This paint alone represents a classified but critical part of the aircraft's effectiveness, shared in concept with other stealth jets like the F-22 and F-35. Beneath the B-2 composite skin lies a reinforced frame built from high-strength steel, enabling the wings to flex during flight. The external shell includes a complex mix of materials: fiberglass epoxy along the edges for radar deflection, graphite epoxy across the main wing surface for strength and lightness, and titanium around engine areas to withstand intense heat. Fiberglass polyamide is also used, and it is chosen for its heat resistance and radar-absorbing qualities. Even the cruise station assembly contains aluminum at the base for structural balance. To reduce its thermal signature, the aircraft houses its engines deep within the body. Air is drawn from concealed intakes, and exhaust is cooled before being released, minimizing the heat trail that modern missiles typically rely on to lock onto targets. This design ensures the B-2 remains elusive not only to radar but also to infrared tracking systems. Despite its complexity, the B-2 operates with a crew of only two, a pilot and a mission commander. They sit side by side in a compact cockpit equipped with a suite of highly sophisticated avionics. These include systems for fuel regulation, weapon targeting, navigation, and terrain tracking, all of which enable missions to continue seamlessly, even in darkness or hostile terrain. For emergencies, the cockpit is fitted with ejection seats, a rare feature in strategic bombers of this scale and cost. The bomber's capability is as imposing as its stealth. It can carry both conventional and nuclear weapons, offering flexibility across tactical and strategic missions. Its internal bay can be configured for different payloads. One option includes up to 80 MiG-82 bombs, each weighing 500 pounds, fitted to a suspension system capable of delivering roughly 40,000 pounds of gravity-based ordnance. Alternatively, the bay can accommodate a rotary launcher system for 16 AGM-158 cruise missiles, each with a range of 230 miles and an estimated cost of $1.5 million. Once released, these missiles deploy wings mid-flight and autonomously guide themselves to their target. Although it is not built for speed, the B-2 has extraordinary endurance. It can travel over 6,000 miles without refueling and far more with in-air refueling support. Its cruising altitude reaches up to 50,000 feet, well above commercial aircraft, and its silent presence often goes unnoticed until the damage is already done. With an estimated price exceeding $2 billion per unit, the B-2 Spirit is among the most expensive aircraft ever built. Fewer than 24 exist, and each is treated as a strategic asset of national importance. Missions are rare, deliberate, and heavily safeguarded, reinforcing the bomber's role as a last resort instrument of war. On the other hand, drug cartels operating across Latin America, particularly in nations like Mexico and Colombia, are not mere criminal gangs, but vast, sophisticated networks with extraordinary financial resources, firepower, and political reach. In many regions, these groups function more like private armies or parallel governments, exerting control over local police forces, municipal authorities, and even national institutions. Their influence is sustained not only through violence but also through strategic generosity, providing food, jobs, and protection to underserved communities, thereby securing local loyalty. The wealth of these organizations is staggering. Cartels such as the Sinaloa Cartel and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel rake in billions of dollars annually, primarily through the trafficking of drugs like cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and fentanyl. These narcotics are produced at minimal cost and sold at immense profit, especially in the United States and Europe. Some cartels, like Escobar's Medellin cartel in its prime, reportedly earned as much as $70 million a day. This financial power enables them to build infrastructure, bribe officials, launder money through elaborate networks of front businesses and cryptocurrencies, and acquire cutting-edge technology. In many cases, their budgets rival or exceed those of the very law enforcement agencies tasked with dismantling them. Armament is one of the cartel's most significant investments. The range of arms in their possession extends far beyond conventional firearms and includes some of the most lethal, high-grade equipment found on global battlefields. Cartels commonly stockpile automatic rifles such as AK-47s, M16s, and AR-15s, many of which are trafficked across the US-Mexico border. These weapons are not only widely available on the black market but are frequently modified after acquisition. Mexican security forces have previously reported seizing thousands of altered rifles in a single year. For instance, in 2009 alone, authorities confiscated over 4,400 modified AK-47 and AR-15 variants, many of which had been illegally converted to allow automatic fire. These seizures offer only a glimpse into a much broader inventory still circulating among cartel groups. However, it is the more advanced and far-reaching weapons that pose the gravest concern, particularly when viewed through the lens of international security. The presence of anti-tank and anti-aircraft systems among cartel stockpiles marks a dramatic escalation in their threat level. Reports have surfaced of cartels, such as the infamous Sinaloa organization, acquiring FGM-148 Javelin missile systems, shoulder-launched guided weapons capable of disabling armored vehicles from more than 2 miles away. These missiles use a tandem warhead system designed to penetrate advanced armor plating and have demonstrated exceptional accuracy, with a reported success rate of 94% in combat conditions. Even more alarming is the fact that some cartel members appear to have received proper training in the operation of these weapons. In interviews, individuals affiliated with cartel groups have admitted not only to possessing javelins, but also to understanding how to deploy them effectively. This suggests access not merely to hardware, but also technical knowledge, raising questions about where such training was obtained and whether more sophisticated instruction networks are in play. In recent years, Mexican cartels have shot at military helicopters. In 2015, a drug cartel in Jalisco used a rocket launcher to take down an army helicopter. The helicopter was transporting soldiers and equipment when it was hit. The crash killed several people. This attack showed just how bold and dangerous cartels can be when they have heavy weapons. In Colombia, during the decades-long war with drug lords and rebels, planes and helicopters were often targeted. Groups like the FARC used stolen or homemade weapons to shoot at police aircraft. These were not high-tech planes, but they were important to the country's fight against crime. This made them targets. The origin of these weapons is difficult to trace. The U.S. Department of Defense, for example, lost track of dozens of Javelin systems during the Iraq conflict, and some may have filtered into criminal hands through third-party trafficking or black market sales. Beyond Javelins, authorities in Mexico have previously intercepted shipments containing Stinger missiles and AT-4 anti-tank launchers, both of which are capable of engaging aircraft and armored ground targets, respectively. Aside from individual weapons, some cartels have constructed improvised armored vehicles, so-called narco tanks or monsters, engineered to break through police barricades and endure gunfire. Surveillance drones are increasingly used for reconnaissance and, in some instances, to deliver small explosives. Their smuggling networks are equally advanced, employing submarines, fast boats, and private aircraft to transport contraband across international borders with astonishing success. Personnel is another pillar of their strength. Cartels frequently recruit former soldiers, elite police officers, and special forces operatives. These individuals bring professional-grade tactical knowledge and combat skills, enabling the organizations to conduct sophisticated operations, rivaling those of state militaries. Given such vast resources, it's theoretically possible that a well-funded cartel could attempt to target a high-value military asset like the U.S. B-2 Spirit bomber. In terms of raw capital, they could afford to acquire black market missile systems, radar tracking tools, or even external technical support to help identify and attack airborne targets. Yet the feasibility of such an operation collapses when considering the complexity of targeting a B-2. This aircraft was specifically engineered to evade detection, using advanced stealth technology that makes it nearly invisible to conventional radar systems. Most cartels, even those with immense wealth, do not possess the specialized tracking systems or trained technicians necessary to lock onto such a target. Even many national militaries struggle to detect the B-2 at cruising altitude, roughly 50,000 feet. Furthermore, the limited range of most black market missile systems makes high-altitude interception virtually impossible. Man pads, for example, are designed to strike helicopters or low-flying planes and lack the propulsion to reach aircraft flying at such extreme elevations. Without advanced radar and guided missile systems capable of reaching those heights, any launch attempt would be blind and ineffective. Even under ideal conditions, if a B-2 were flying low during a bombing run, taking off or landing, cartels would still face monumental challenges. Spotting the aircraft in time, coordinating a precise strike, and overcoming its suite of defensive countermeasures, including flares and electronic jamming, would require elite training and near-perfect execution. In addition, B-2 missions are often accompanied by support from drones, satellites, and fighter escorts. But perhaps the most significant deterrent isn't technical, it's geopolitical. Successfully downing a U.S. stealth bomber would constitute an act of war. The retaliation from the United States would be immediate and devastating. The cartel responsible would face not just national police or army units, but the full force of American military power, with no hesitation and no room for negotiation. However, the cartels are not new to war against the government. For nearly 2 decades, Mexico has been embroiled in a relentless conflict against powerful drug cartels, a war that continues to claim lives without delivering a decisive victory. Despite extensive efforts by Mexican authorities and billions in U.S. support, the violence remains staggering. Since the government formally declared war on the cartels in 2006, the country has suffered over 460,000 homicides, a figure that underscores the scale and brutality of the crisis. In the early stages of the conflict, former President Felipe Calderón took a militarized approach. Tens of thousands of soldiers were deployed across the nation to reinforce or replace local police forces. This surge initially yielded results. 25 of the country's 37 most wanted drug lords were captured or killed. But the strategy had unintended consequences. Rather than dismantling cartel power, it splintered the criminal landscape. Smaller, more elusive and violent gangs quickly filled the vacuum, escalating the brutality and making it harder for authorities to track and neutralize them. Subsequent administrations shifted their focus from confronting cartels directly to managing the country's soaring murder rate. This change in strategy allowed many of the fractured criminal factions to thrive in the shadows, relying on agility, anonymity, and ruthless violence to maintain control. While Mexico's military, despite its size, struggles against well-armed and deeply embedded enemies, the United States presents an entirely different kind of force. Should the U.S. ever commit to a direct campaign against the cartels, the balance of power would shift dramatically. The United States possesses one of the most formidable military forces in the world, both in manpower and technology. With approximately 1.3 million active-duty personnel and nearly 800,000 reservists, the American military stands ready to respond to threats across the globe. In a full-scale mobilization, millions more could be drafted, though such a step would be unnecessary when confronting criminal networks like the Mexican cartels. Its arsenal matches its size. The U.S. military holds over 4,600 main battle tanks, nearly 400,000 ground vehicles for combat and transport, 641 multiple launch rocket systems, and close to 2,000 artillery pieces. Ground forces are equipped with modern weapons, including large numbers of M4 carbines and Javelin missile systems, standard tools that give individual soldiers a significant edge in combat. Despite this overwhelming superiority, engaging the cartels presents a unique set of complications. Unlike conventional armies, cartel forces do not operate from fixed military bases. Their operations are embedded in civilian areas, small towns and city neighborhoods, where they exploit the population as both camouflage and shield. This makes direct attacks complex, as American troops must avoid unnecessary civilian harm while dismantling criminal networks. To navigate this terrain, the U.S. would likely adopt a strategy based on isolation and precision. Rather than launching broad offensives, American forces would surround cartel-held territories with armored convoys, establishing secure checkpoints to cut off all movement in and out. Only after a complete lockdown would ground teams advance, relying on real-time intelligence to target specific cartel facilities. In these urban environments, U.S. soldiers would function more like specialized counter-terror units than traditional infantry. Their movements would be careful and deliberate, aimed at dismantling infrastructure without triggering indiscriminate destruction. Resistance, however, would be expected. Armed with smuggled heavy weapons, including reports of Javelin missiles, cartel fighters could attempt ambushes and sabotage, using their familiarity with the terrain to create short-term tactical challenges. Still, in any prolonged conflict, the balance would tip overwhelmingly in favor of the U.S. military. Its superior coordination, firepower, and intelligence infrastructure far outpace anything the cartels can mount. That intelligence advantage is already visible. In early 2025, U.S. reconnaissance aircraft conducted at least 18 specialized flights along the Mexican border, far more than the one-per-month frequency seen in earlier years. These spy planes, operating with Mexico's full cooperation, now scan the skies constantly, mapping cartel supply lines, identifying secret airstrips, and tracking vehicle movements from above. Even without full-scale deployment, the U.S. has already demonstrated dominance in the air and sea. Major cartel positions have been struck, maritime blockades are in place, and American aircraft patrol Mexican airspace with precision. But while the campaign has proven effective, the cartels are far from broken. Over time, these criminal organizations have evolved from loosely organized smuggling rings into militarized factions. Many operate training camps where recruits learn guerrilla tactics, urban combat techniques, and the use of improvised explosives. Their fighters, often clad in military-style gear, are capable of launching surprise attacks, setting traps, and vanishing into the civilian population. This ability to hide in plain sight gives them an edge in asymmetrical warfare. Blending into local communities, they can carry out attacks while intimidating civilians into silence. Fear, corruption, and control form the pillars of their local power. Yet the cartels suffer from a critical weakness: fragmentation. Rather than a unified enemy, Mexico hosts a volatile mix of rival groups, including the Sinaloa Cartel, Jalisco New Generation Cartel, Los Zetas, and others, each vying for dominance. As American strikes intensify, these factions would likely begin to turn on each other, competing for resources and territory. Internal discord would further weaken their ability to mount any coordinated resistance. This disunity also creates a valuable opening for U.S. intelligence agencies. Surveillance tools, including satellites, drones, and signal intercepts, can monitor cartel movements, intercept communications, and trace heat signatures. Once the group responsible for downing the B-2 bomber is identified, the response will be swift and absolute. Precision airstrikes would likely follow, targeting cartel safe houses, weapons caches, drug labs, and leadership compounds. Afterwards, elite special operations forces might be deployed to eliminate or capture high-value targets. These units operate quietly, often under the cover of night, and rely on continuous intelligence support from air and space assets. But the response would not stop at the battlefield. Economically, the U.S. would suffocate the cartel's financial system. Bank accounts, front businesses, and even digital assets such as cryptocurrency wallets would be frozen or seized. International cooperation would ensure that the cartel's ability to move funds, buy weapons, or pay off officials would be severely restricted. Without money, their capacity to recruit, equip, and wage war would collapse. Cutting off the drug trade would remain a core objective. Intelligence indicates that the majority of cocaine entering the U.S. is produced in Colombia and smuggled north through Mexico. To disrupt this, the U.S. Navy may expand its presence in the South Pacific, intercepting ocean-bound shipments. Land-based checkpoints at Central American borders, especially near Nicaragua, would help sever overland routes. The strategy is simple: isolate the cartels, dry up their revenue, and eliminate their influence. Any cartel bold enough to strike at a strategic American asset like a B-2 bomber would not face measured retaliation. They would face complete disintegration. Supersonic travel is making a comeback. After Concorde's fall, many believed fast commercial flight was gone for good. But now a new aircraft claims to succeed where Concorde struggled. It promises lower noise, better fuel efficiency, and a longer range, solving the very problems that grounded its famous predecessor. Concorde was iconic, but it was loud, expensive, and limited in reach. This new jet aims to rewrite those rules and take aviation into the future. But can it really deliver on that promise? Or is supersonic flight still chasing a dream? Join us as we explore the capabilities of the Concorde's successor that has finally reached hypersonic speed. The journey of supersonic commercial travel began in the 1950s, when Britain started thinking about the possibility of building a very fast passenger plane, one that has the ability to fly faster than the speed of sound. The idea was extremely alluring that France also showed interest. To make this dream a reality, Britain and France started acting out their plans. On the 29th of November 1962, Britain and France signed an agreement to work together on this exciting project. They decided to share everything, including ideas, designs, money, and factories. The project was named Concorde, which means agreement in French. The name came from French President Charles de Gaulle, who used the word during a speech. The first Concorde ever built was called 001, and it flew for the first time on the 2nd of March 1969 in Toulouse, France. The French test pilot was proud and happy when the plane landed safely. He smiled and said, "The big bird flies." A few weeks later, the British version of the plane, called 001, had its first flight from an airfield in Bristol, England. People were amazed. That same year, both planes were shown at the Paris Air Show in June, and they became the stars of the event. One of the most famous Concordes, called GBOAA, is now on display at the National Museum of Flight. It shows just how amazing this plane was. This aircraft performed exceptionally well. On 26 September 1973, Concorde made her first non-stop flight across the Atlantic Ocean. She flew from Washington, D.C. in the USA to Orly Airport near Paris, France. The trip took only 3 hours and 33 minutes, which was a new record at that time. The plane flew at an average speed of 954 miles per hour, which was faster than the speed of sound. Then they pressed on and the Concorde started flying with passengers on 21st January 1976. One plane took off from London and flew to Bahrain in the Middle East. Another Concorde, flown by Air France, flew from Paris to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. These flights were very special because Concorde could fly much faster than regular planes. People who wanted to save time and travel in style were excited to fly on Concorde, even though the tickets were very expensive. One of the most memorable moments in Concorde's history happened on the 1st of July, 1999. That was the day when the Scottish Parliament was officially opened by Queen Elizabeth II. To celebrate, a Concorde flew in the sky alongside the famous Red Arrows, which are the Royal Air Force's special flying team. They flew over the Parliament building while soldiers fired a 21-gun salute. It was a proud and powerful moment in British history. Flying on Concorde was not just fast, it was magical. This amazing plane could travel faster than the Earth's rotation. That meant a passenger could leave London after breakfast and arrive in New York before breakfast time there, on the same day. Famous broadcaster Sir David Frost once said that Concorde was the only way you can, in human life, be in two places at once. Since Concorde began flying passengers in 1976, over 2.5 million people experienced its supersonic speed. Every person who flew on Concorde received a special certificate that showed they had broken the sound barrier. This meant they had flown faster than the speed of sound, something most people could only dream of. Inside the plane, passengers could see a Mach meter on the wall near the front. This special meter didn't show speed in miles per hour like regular planes. Instead, it showed Mach numbers. Mach 1 meant the plane was flying at the exact speed of sound. Mach 2 meant it was flying twice as fast. Seeing that number go up made the experience feel like a real adventure. A typical journey from London to New York took under 3.5 hours, compared to the usual 7 to 8 hours on a regular plane. The Concorde cruised at an altitude of 18,000 meters, nearly double that of standard aircraft. At this height, passengers could see the curve of the Earth, and the thinner air reduced drag, allowing the plane to go even faster. The Concorde experience wasn't just about speed, it was also about luxury. Passengers were treated like kings and queens. They sipped cocktails and champagne while flying through the sky. Their meals included fancy treats like caviar and lobster, and some even enjoyed fine cigars. Actual royalty flew on Concorde too. Queen Elizabeth II always sat in seat 1A when she was on board. Flying Concorde was not cheap. In 2003, a return ticket from London to New York cost €6,636. But passengers weren't just paying for a seat, they were paying for time, style, and the feeling of being part of the future. Concorde made flying exciting and glamorous. To show how much people didn't mind paying for comfort and time, between 1976 and 2003, British Airways Concorde planes completed nearly 50,000 flights. They flew for over 140,000 hours and covered 140 million miles. That's more than traveling around the world 5,600 times. During those flights, over 1 million bottles of champagne were served to happy passengers. As much as the thought of being in two places at once sounds like a dream, this supersonic was not without its problems. The Concorde was far from perfect, and one of its major problems was fuel consumption. Its 4 powerful engines used a huge amount of fuel, making each flight very expensive to operate. On a normal flight, it used around 6,771 gallons of fuel, which is considered to be very expensive. In fact, it cost more to fly the plane than it made in profit. Only 20 Concordes were ever built, and no airlines really wanted to buy them. The only ones that flew were used by Air France and British Airways, and they only did it because their governments ran them at the time. But fuel costs were not the only problem with the Concorde. Flying at twice the speed of sound brought more trouble than was initially anticipated. Because the Concorde was so fast, it created something called a sonic boom, a loud, powerful shock wave that could break windows and shake houses. That meant it wasn't allowed to fly over cities and towns. It could only fly over the ocean, which limited where it could go. And even when it flew near cities, the Concorde was noisy. People living nearby often complained about the loud takeoffs and landings. On top of that, the plane released a lot of pollution, and the growing environmental movement strongly opposed it. What was once a symbol of luxury and speed started to be seen as noisy, polluting, and wasteful. Because of all these problems, Concorde could only fly a few special routes, mainly between New York, Washington, London, and Paris. It couldn't travel as freely as regular airplanes. Sadly, the Concorde dream came to a tragic end after a terrible accident that took lives. On 25 July 2000, an Air France Concorde crashed just after taking off from Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. The crash killed 100 passengers, 9 crew members, and 4 people on the ground. After the crash, all Concorde planes from both Air France and British Airways were grounded. But before that happened, the British plane Alpha Alpha flew one last time from JFK Airport in New York to Heathrow in London on the 12th of August 2000. There were attempts to restore the reputation that had been damaged. In 2001, Concorde returned to the skies after a €17 million upgrade. However, Alpha Alpha was not chosen to fly again. Then came another big blow, the 11th of September terrorist attacks in the United States. After that, people flew less, and many flights were empty. Concorde was expensive to run, and empty seats meant big losses. By 2003, it was clear that Concorde had reached the end of its journey. Even though it no longer flies, the memories of Concorde still live on. It wasn't just a plane, it was a symbol of speed, power, and elegance. For many, flying on Concorde was one of the greatest experiences of their lives. The British Airways eventually announced it would retire its 7 Concorde aircraft. This marked the end of a legendary era in air travel. To say goodbye in style, a farewell tour was planned across the UK and North America. Crowds of fans gathered to watch the sleek, supersonic jets take their final flights, cheering and waving as they passed overhead. After retirement, the Concordes were placed in museums around the world. One special plane, G Bravo Oscar Alpha Alpha, found its new home at the National Museum of Flight in East Fortune, Scotland. Now, people from all over can visit and admire the elegant aircraft that once flew faster than sound. Though Concorde no longer takes to the skies, it remains a proud symbol of speed, innovation, and international teamwork, remembered fondly by fans and travelers everywhere. But while the world thought it was a final goodbye to supersonic commercial air travels, aviation companies had other plans. In recent years, there has been a strong comeback in the race to build super and hypersonic jets. Among the most exciting developments are Boom Supersonics aircraft, the XB-1 and the Overture. These advanced planes aim to bring back the thrill of high-speed air travel, much like the legendary Concorde once did. It is also determined to revive that golden age of flight with even better and more efficient designs. Boom Supersonics test aircraft, the XB-1, nicknamed the Baby Boom, is a small demonstrator plane built to test advanced supersonic technology. It's a third the size of their planned commercial airliner, the Overture. The XB-1 is powered by 3 General Electric J85 engines and is designed to fly at Mach 2.2, which is over twice the speed of sound, with a range of over 1,000 nautical miles. This sleek test jet features cutting-edge technologies, including carbon fiber composites, advanced aerodynamics, digitally optimized flight controls, and a special augmented reality vision system that helps pilots with takeoff and landing. The XB-1 is built using advanced carbon composite materials, which give the fuselage both strength and lightness. These materials are essential for handling the extreme stress and heat generated at high speeds. At the same time, they help keep the aircraft's weight low, which improves fuel efficiency, something the original Concorde struggled with. By solving weight and fuel challenges, Boom is working toward a more sustainable model of supersonic travel. Boom has also promised that both the XB-1 and the future Overture jet will operate as carbon-neutral aircraft. They aim to use sustainable aviation fuels and energy-efficient technologies to lower carbon emissions. This aligns with the global push for greener and cleaner air travel, something the aviation industry is focusing on more than ever before. Aerodynamics is another area where Boom is making big changes. The XB-1 features a long, sleek nose and delta-shaped wings, which reduce drag and optimize flight at supersonic speeds. These design elements also help to minimize shock waves, which are responsible for the loud sonic booms that limited Concorde's routes in the past. With better aerodynamics, Boom hopes to soften these booms and make overland supersonic flight more acceptable. The XB-1 was officially revealed in October 2020. Since then, Boom has been conducting a series of test flights to ensure the aircraft's safety and performance. By October 2024, the 5th test flight successfully used the flutter excitation system for the first time. Flutter, in aviation terms, is the unsteady movement of aircraft parts caused by forces like lift, drag, and thrust. It's like a bird flapping its wings in flight. Testing for flutter is critical to ensure the aircraft remains stable and safe in turbulent conditions during commercial operations. Boom Supersonic reached a major milestone when its chief test pilot, Tristan Geppetto Brandenburg, broke the sound barrier 3 times during a special flight. It was the first time a civilian aircraft had ever gone faster than the speed of sound over the mainland United States. This marked a huge moment in aviation history and showed how far supersonic travel had come since the days of the Concorde. The company repeated this impressive achievement during another test flight on Monday. The flight lasted around 41 minutes, from liftoff to landing back at the Mojave Air and Spaceport in California. It was another step forward for Boom as they continued to develop their new supersonic passenger jet, called the XB-1. During a live broadcast on the day of the flight, Boom's chief flight test engineer, Nick Shiraika, said the team had achieved something many believed was impossible. He explained that most people thought a small startup company couldn't design and fly a supersonic aircraft without support from the government or large airplane manufacturers. However, Boom had managed to do it on their own. Shiraika also pointed out that the company had now proven their ability not just once, but 6 times. According to him, Boom had shown the world that they could safely design, build, and test a plane that flies faster than sound. This success, he said, proved that innovation and determination could make the impossible possible, even without big industry support. What makes Boom's approach different is that they are privately funded, unlike previous supersonic projects like the Concorde, which relied heavily on government support. This shift represents a bold new chapter in aviation, where private innovation is taking the lead. This aircraft is essentially a flying laboratory designed to test technologies that will be used in Boom's full-scale passenger jet, the Overture. This commercial supersonic jet is designed to carry between 65 and 88 passengers. With lessons learned from the XB-1, Boom is aiming to create a fast, fuel-efficient, and environmentally friendly passenger plane that can cut travel times dramatically. If successful, it could mark a new age of sustainable, high-speed flight. The Overture is set to change the future of air travel. Designed to fly at speeds of Mach 1.7 or around 1,300 miles per hour, it could cut flight times nearly in half on long routes. For example, trips from New York to London could take just 3.5 hours, while a flight from Los Angeles to Sydney may be completed in only 8 hours. With a projected range of about 4,250 nautical miles, Overture is designed for non-stop flights between major international cities, offering both speed and convenience. Like the XB-1 demonstrator, the Overture will be a carbon-neutral aircraft. Boom is making environmental sustainability a top priority, focusing on using sustainable aviation fuel and energy-efficient systems. Key features like its delta-wing design, lightweight carbon composite construction, and advanced propulsion systems all help reduce drag and improve fuel efficiency, solving the major issues that plague the Concorde. Noise is another major challenge. To reduce the disruptive sonic boom, Boom plans for the Overture to fly at supersonic speeds only over oceans and large bodies of water, switching to subsonic speeds over land. This thoughtful approach could make supersonic travel more acceptable worldwide and help it gain approval from aviation authorities. The Overture is expected to begin commercial service in the early 2030s, with development and testing continuing throughout the 2020s. Excitement is building in the aviation world, especially after United Airlines became the first major carrier to order 15 Overture jets, with options for 35 more. This shows growing confidence in Boom's mission to bring back fast, efficient travel. While speed is a major feature, Boom is also focusing on comfort and luxury. Overture will offer a premium experience with large windows for each passenger, more spacious seating, and modern amenities. Unlike the cramped interiors of Concorde, Boom's Overture aims to provide a quieter and more relaxing cabin, enhanced with the latest technology for a better flying experience. They also want to address the huge cost that Concorde passengers faced. Boom has stated that they are targeting business class pricing for Overture tickets, making it more accessible. The goal is to make supersonic travel a feasible option for more business and leisure travelers. Although Boom hasn't needed government backing for development, it has secured backing from multiple governments and institutions to explore potential military applications for the Overture platform. This includes the U.S. Air Force. Boom Supersonic aims to make high-speed travel more affordable than Concorde ever was. Instead of sky-high ticket prices, Boom plans to offer Overture flights at business-class rates, making supersonic travel more accessible to both business and leisure travelers. While the company hasn't relied on government funding for its development, it has received support from various governments and organizations. Notably, the United States Air Force is working with Boom to explore potential military uses for the Overture platform. This partnership could expand the jet's role beyond commercial aviation into national defense and high-speed military transport. With each test, Boom was getting closer to launching a new generation of passenger flights that could cut travel time in half. The team remained confident that their work would one day change how people travel across the world. Thanks for watching. Before you go, click the link on your screen to check out another video. See you there.